Tension.
Tension in the air, gentlemen. Simmer down, simmer down. We got to talk some Bears here because you were talking about the D-line. Yeah. Will they address that? Well, we had an opportunity to hear from the two new coordinators for the first time here today. Dennis Allen, he was up first, and he was asked what he thought about the team and what he liked about this roster.
I took a look a little bit at the pieces on defense. I felt like there were some pieces in place. In particular, I think there's some things that we have to have in the secondary that I like. I think there's some pieces at linebacker that I'm encouraged by. I think there's a couple of spots up front that I feel like we've got some players. So I think the foundation is there defensively. And I think, look, when Ben asked me if I would be interested, there was a couple of places that I felt like had the pieces in place to potentially be a really good football team.
I mean, if you take a look at this guy in his coaching career, he has produced 5 top 10 defenses since 2011. But taking a look at what you have now on the Bears roster, do you think he has an opportunity for another top 10 defense?
I do. I think that defense can be about coaching as much as it is about talent. You need the talent, certainly, but I think Dennis Allen is a football lifer who has been there and done that. You heard a lot of that today. So it's not inconceivable that he could take this collection of talent on the Bears if it can stay healthy and he can push the right buttons to make it an attacking group. He sounded aggressive, to make it a consistent group, and to really get the potential out of a group that hasn't really met its expectations last year, at least. Before that, 2023, that was a very good top 10 defense at the end of the year. I think he can restore that.
Yeah, he's going to be able to maximize what's there for this defensive group, and especially on that defensive line. But they're going to add those pieces in the offseason to really strengthen it even more. So you're looking at a guy in Dennis Allen that is widely regarded in the NFL as one of the best defensive minds out there. And Brooke, you mentioned about the top 10 defenses that he's been a part of, that he's helped lead. This is going to be a Bears team, especially with the pieces that they're adding. He's going to make sure that it starts with that defense and adding a certain level of physicality that we haven't seen in a while.
And he can't be afraid to ask for what he needs, because they need a big defensive tackle, maybe the 3 technique that 𝗦cie𝗰𝗶 never got from Ryan Poles. And that was, that put him behind from day one. So Dennis Allen is going to know exactly what he needs to make this scheme work. It's up to Ryan Poles and Ben Johnson to make sure he's got it.
They have the cap space as well, too. So he can, for sure, go to the front offices, talk to Ryan Poles, talk to Kevin Warren, say, hey, this is what I need to make sure that this team, that on the defensive side of the football, is top 10 and one of the best in the league.
But you can't overlook the secondary, though, because he did talk about that DB room. Do you think that's the strength of this defense, David?
Right now it is, Brooke. I think because you look at the experience level, you got Jalen Johnson, one of the best cornerbacks in the league. You have Kyler Gordon, one of the more versatile players that you're going to want. He can blitz. He can good against the run. And so you have also Tyreek Stevenson, which is a project. He needs to rehabilitate his career. We don't know what you have in Jaquan Brisker. But if Jaquan Brisker is healthy, and that's a big if, he's a difference maker.
Yeah, my thing is going back to just what I mentioned before, just all the talent that's there on the defense and be able to maximize that talent that they have as well. I'm still waiting to see with Jaquan Brisker, of him taking that next step. Obviously, health is always a big thing with him because he missed the majority of the season after that big hit against, blanket on the team?
Carolina.
Yeah. That
Tommy
big hit
Tremble.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Tommy Tremble, that hit. Thank you, David. But again, you have guys that are, one, veterans, but also have the talent to make sure that defense is one of the best in the league.
All right, well, we go from one guy with all this experience in the world to on the offensive side of the ball, and Declan Doyle here. He was asked what his day-to-day role is going to look like, and here's what he had to say.
You said table-setting role. I think that's a great way to describe it. Ben is going to have less time than he's ever had as a play caller. And so, obviously I think that's kind of a thing that's morphing as we go. We'll kind of figure out what that looks like. But my job is really going to be to organize and detail, the game plan initially, utilizing, our staff. Everybody will have different assignments, kind of how we are going to build this thing with schematically as we attack a defense. But basically, I have to do that work that he's not going to have time to do, and he's going to have to be able to trust me that I'm going to be able to give him the correct information that he needs as a decision maker.
Okay, so there were some mixed reviews here. I want to get your thoughts because you have a head coach in Ben Johnson, the offensive mind, great offensive mind. That's why we brought him in. So you have him calling the plays, but then you got the wide receiver coach, who is the assistant head coach here. So where does he fit in when it comes to play calling and just that ARP?
I think he understands what he is and what he isn't on this staff. I was surprised at the criticism that Declan Doyle got today. I think he came across as highly organized, intense, very intelligent, somebody who understands the limitations of his reach in this job. He doesn't have to call plays. He doesn't have to design the greatest plays. He's going to be probably steeped in analytics. He's going to make sure that everything is organized and that Ben Johnson has everything at his disposal. I felt like he made an impression. The first impression was a strong one, and I think that he's exactly what you would expect from a 28-year-old who doesn't have a ton of experience but isn't trying to oversell what he's bringing to the staff.
Yeah, you have to go back to Pop Warner football when I throw this out, but it's about team, right? Together, everyone achieves more. So Declan Doyle's in the position to be able to learn from Ben Johnson, of course, with wide receiver coach and assistant coach 𝗬𝗏. So he's in a very privileged position to help out in ways that Ben Johnson, as he mentioned when we heard him, just say that, and things that Ben Johnson can't really take care of, you can have Declan Doyle step in and be able to help out in that way.
And the people that he surrounded himself with throughout his short career in the NFL, Sean Payton, he learned from him, one of the great, arguably one of the greater coaches in the league right now. You have Dennis Allen, when he was with the Saints, he had experience with him, talked about his football IQ and how he just sees the game differently from others. And then he was also in the room when he was with the Saints, the tight ends coach at the time, Dan Campbell, where Ben Johnson, obviously hand in hand with Dan Campbell, you would think that the success that they had, that he talked to Dan and was like, what are your thoughts on him? He has a lot of people, I'm sure, in his corner.
That's a great point. At this point of his career, you're basing a lot of your opinion on those recommendations, on those references, and those are guys whose word carries a lot of weight in NFL circles. I think that he brought Declan Doyle maybe more substance than style, but that's not such a bad thing. We talked about Ben Johnson. What is he use? The word he used a lot, authentic. Be authentic. 𝗬𝗏 is going to be authentic.
No doubt.
He's got a lot of personality. He's going to get in your face if you're not doing it the right way. I think Ben Johnson has his own style. And now we see Declan Doyle. He's going to be exactly who he is and not try to be too, who he isn't. And I think that's important.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brooke.
No, and I think that's a really good point because when you look at we talked jokingly but kind of serious about taking the Lions approach, where Dan Campbell, authenticity, I feel like is his brand. When you're trying to bring an organization back, you're trying to shake it up a little bit. You need somebody that's genuine, that can relate to the players and be like, what? No, we are moving in a different direction. Somebody that they can relate to and grab onto.
And if you're trying too hard, players will see through it.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, they can see through that. But also at the same time, thinking about Dan Campbell and how he empowered his offensive coordinator and Ben Johnson and defensive coordinator and Aaron Glenn. You want to see Ben Johnson try and do something similar. And even Johnson said that was one thing that he learned from Dan Campbell is how he empowered his OC and the DC. So again, it's a privileged position for Declan Doyle. Just thrive in your role. Thrive in your role because you have one of the best offensive minds as your head coach that will be calling the plays.
All right, well, let's switch.